So as you know, the fall of 2016 has begun, which means there's cold weather, new anime to watch for as social rejects, and new waifus to love for you completely antisocial psychopaths. I didn't have high expectations going into this season aside from a few shows such as Izetta the Last Witch, Yuri on Ice, and March Comes In Like a Lion. However, I have been extremely impressed with what I've seen so far all around. I expected Trickster to be pretty awful, but I was shocked to see that the first episode could be debatably categorized as good. I expected Tiger Mask to be a low-budget, mediocre sports show that would drive in no audience. However, it turned out to be the complete opposite and is one of the better sports shows I've seen in quite a while. I also expected that Occultic 9, A1 Pictures' new show, would be an extremely mediocre show in basically every fashion aside from the comedy and character interactions and the script that would consequently make the show a fun time. And Jesus Christ, have I never been so off in a prediction in my entire life. Occultic 9's first episode was explosive, fun, meticulously animated, creatively shot, cohesive, extremely telling, constantly moving, well-directed, beautifully sounding, and immensely detailed. Look, I could go at this all day. The point is that the show's first episode was easily the best episode of anime I've seen all year, and it's not even close. But that is not what the general consensus is, from what I've gathered. There are a number of people who agree with me on Occultic 9 and how phenomenal its first episode was, such as the lone Dragonian that survived World War II and the ever-rebranding machine of Mayhem. But the majority of the community feels as if the first episode was awful. I mean, it has a f***ing 6 on Mal, and the score is basically dropping every 10 minutes. So what the hell is the problem with Occultic 9 that I, Scrolls, and the people who thought the first episode was awesome are completely missing? Surely there must be huge complaints that completely ruin the show's watchability in the first episode, considering the show has a f***ing 6 on Mal. Let me repeat, a 6! People think this is as bad as Berserk 2016. Okay, let me calm down. Gonna do me a small rewatch of Big Wind-Up in 2x speed and there we go. I'm back to normal and my taste is refined. Now I can continue. As Occultic 9's Mal score was dropping like a f***ing anchor, I was looking for answers on why the show was so widely disliked. Luckily, that anime snob uploaded a video parodying Chibi reviews. And what I assumed to be an Occultic 9 review. And my assumption was right, so I went to Chibi's channel to watch his entire review because Snob's video reminded me that Chibi #1 exists, and that #2, he has an extremely large outreach and connection to the opinions of the mainstream anime watchers, aka the casuals as we like to call them. Knowing this, alongside looking at the like to dislike ratio and seeing how disappointed his comment section was in the show's first episode, I concluded it would be fair to assume Chibi's complaint as the most agreed upon and most accurate within the community. So I proceeded to watch Chibi's video to see what insanely big issues Occultic 9's first episode had that could warrant the show to already be placed on the same level as the Hakenden from the 90s. And, well,
the fast pace of this episode was so fast. The narrative of the episode was just so bad. Couldn't even literally keep up. I barely kept up. Episode adapted one light novel volume. Like, all my hype I had for the series has just literally been crushed. GG.
F me. You have to be joking, right? Well, time to get back into damage control mode. Been a while since I got sick of making videos on ReZero. I'm going to dismantle these arguments, however, one by one. Now, before I start to do so, this is not an attack on Chibi. This is an attack on his and the opinions of the majority of the people who do not find this show good. So don't say, you're doing this for the views, like everyone did on the Chibi Reviews Patreon thing, because you don't have anything to say to refute my arguments. Now, to the point. Out of all the complaints I've heard on Occultic 9, this is the one that bothers me the most, because at least for me, this was 100% false. I've seen people say the show was hard to follow because the dialogue was too fast and the show was going through events at a rapid speed. But there are several tricks employed by the show to make sure that the audience isn't lost, and at any time, the audience knows where the characters are when events are going on, and when in terms of time these events are going on. Take note of my idiosyncratic pronunciation of the word events because it's going to be important in a bit. An example of the show's smart directing choices is giving the audience ample establishing shots of every area well before that area becomes the main setting for the show. When the roundtable discussion at the beginning of the first episode is about to become the focus of attention, the TV is given approximately 6 seconds in the center of the frame. As a result of it being in the center of the frame as opposed to often Bufu Egypt like a Berserk 2016 cut, it's hard to not notice the TV turning on. This, alongside the silence of the main characters, signals to the viewer the TV is important. The TV then gets another 3 seconds of time where it is the only item in the frame, making it the obvious point of emphasis for the next scene, which transitions in with a simple cross dissolve. You may be thinking I just overanalyzed the framing of a scene, but that only proves that the show is fairly simple, and I think that speaks to how efficient the show is when transitioning between scenes. Simple tricks like these are used throughout the whole episode, and most of the transitions from location to location are all around 6 seconds long. And this is why the complaint that the show is hard to follow makes no sense to me. Yes, the dialogue is fast, but if you've seen shows like the Tatami Galaxy and things of that sort, this is nothing. It's honestly just mind-boggling that people can get lost while watching this show, especially when transitioning, because scenes are deliberately designed so that you are incapable of getting lost between each of the events of the episode. Speaking of events,
now, not one manga volume, not one chapter, not 5 chapters,
not an encyclopedia volume,
one light novel volume. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god.
This is another complaint I have an extremely big issue with, because this claim has no relevance to whether the show is good or not. Before I wrap up this claim very quickly, I'm going to simply plug Roger Smith 2004's video on source material being irrelevant when defending or criticizing an adaptation right now. Roger's video sums up the main flaws with using the source material as a means to defend or criticize an adaptation in a very poignant manner, so it'd be a waste of time for me to simply repeat everything he says. Simply put though, the fact that the first episode is one volume doesn't matter because, I'm sorry to say this, but aside from the ending, nothing really happened at all. A guy talks about his blog, some establishment of cults is discussed briefly, a backstory is given, a curse is laid upon a man, an idol joins the main character's blog, and a guy gets killed at the end. The only one of those events that has any major relevance aside from the basic establishment of the plot is a guy dying. Essentially what I'm trying to say here is that it doesn't matter if an entire volume was adapted into one episode because nothing happened. How do people get lost in literal nothingness? Instead of criticizing the show for getting through all of these events in one episode, we should be collectively thanking the boys at A1 Pictures and the director for saving us from watching absolutely fucking nothing for 4 to 5 episodes. Instead of looking at how much positive rushing the plot has done for the show and the entertainment of the audience, all people are doing is complaining. Man, this is ironic as hell coming from, you know, the Salt King. But this video is not about me. Point is, stop using the original novels and the show's lack of faithfulness to the pacing as a criticism, because it has in no way hampered the show at the moment. In the future, if problems spawn from this first episode going so fast, then you'd have the right to talk. But the chaotic and lightning speed of the first episode is the reason why the show is even being talked about among many anime fans that would have otherwise dismissed it as another failed A1 Pictures fall mystery show.
So what this means is that since the third one was canceled, we just adapted the first fucking volume in the first episode. That means the second volume is gonna have to carry us through the remainder of the series, and then they're gonna have to go anime original or something.
Chibi, I'm really not trying to fire shots here, but it's like you're asking me to attack you. I want to put the past behind us, man. Forget about the patrons and the strikes and how I was right on Kame got killed. Actually, I'm not forgetting that one. But come on, man. Your brain, use it, man. So Chibi brings up in his video that currently Occultic 9 has only 2 light novel volumes out and a third one that was canceled. However, because the first volume was adapted already, the second is going to have to be the rest of the show before it goes anime original. And then he says,
GG.
What do you mean, GG? Okay, so the show is going anime original, and it was going to go anime original regardless of if the first episode was the first chapter, the first volume, or both volumes. Why? Because nothing f***ing happened in the first volume, and considering the third volume was in production at some point, the story of the second volume was probably not even over. So as soon as the second volume was adapted, the show was going to go anime original, and the ending, if we were to get one, considering the show probably wouldn't get a second season in this hypothetical, would be anime original as well. So I don't see your point here. Are you insinuating that anime original endings are basically foretold dooms? Maybe if every single anime original ending ever created was terrible and poorly thought out, I'd understand that thought process, but FMA 2003 was original for like half its run and is one of the best shows I've ever seen. Kekai Sensen's ending is technically anime original and it was solid. Railgun and Railgun S largely differ from their source material, and they're both some of the best action shows created within the past 5 to 6 years. There's actually quite a number of examples I could give, but I don't feel like there'd be any bearing aside from making Chibi look ignorant, and I don't need to do that because Snob and Chibi do that for me. Occultic 9's criticism is extremely undeserved. We as a community are mad that a show adapted a volume in 1 episode because it just did. We're ignoring, my bad, you're ignoring the benefits that this first episode has for the story. The series only has 2 volumes probably because it didn't sell well, which is not me making an implication about its quality, but instead me suggesting that maybe it didn't sell well because it didn't meet a certain standard or crack the entertainment threshold of the general audience. If Occultic 9 was a simple 1-to-1 adaptation of the original light novel, the show would be just as unpopular and slow as its other part in Japan. Essentially what we would have is a Roka no Yusha situation all over again. And Roka's a fine show to watch weekly, but it goes around in circles and is needlessly stretched out to fit its 12-episode runtime. Thankfully, Occultic 9 looks as if it will not be making the same mistake, and for that I thank A1 Pictures. To Chibi and everyone else who agrees with his criticisms on the show, you're wrong, fam, at least for this first episode. Who knows what the future will hold for Occultic 9 out of 10? Ooh, that was a nasty cough. The show could end up being met with tremendous acclaim or monolithic opprobrium. We'll just have to wait and see.